All right, so let me share it again. Yeah, so we actually were discussing the chapter that is project management. Now you know what is a project and what it involves. We have discussed it and how we can what is project management, okay, and what is the job of a project manager now. And that is we have discussed that as well. I mean, with the cost constraints, resource constraints, the budget constraints as well, time constraint which is there. So that is actually all about the managing those within those constraints, managing the project and finishing it at the right time. This is project management. We know about it. Then we just discuss about various things which are important in project management: resources, time. You know that how important they are, money, and the scope as well. Okay, and Fazan is also there. So Fazan was one of the student who actually missed out the earlier part. I hope that now he will be there to listen to whatever we are discussing. I mean that is review. The review. The key elements of project management ये भी हमने पढ़ लिया हुआ है. क्या क्या होती हैं. I'm not going to discuss that. Consequences of project failure. So we discussed about it. If you are unable to complete the project at the right time, or maybe the quality is compromised as far as the project is concerned, so there's a problem there. These are the issues there. Causes of project failure, we discussed that as well earlier, right? There was, we discussed every point in detail. uh, by what is the cause of, or in fact, the causes of project failure. Then we talked about the network analysis or CPA, critical path analysis. And now you know why we call it critical path analysis now, because we find out the critical path. And what is the critical path? We discussed that as well. So that is done. Then the steps that are involved in drawing up a network diagram. We discussed that as well. Actually, I have told you about it, like define the objective, put the tasks that make up the project into right sequence, and draw a network diagram, then add durations of each of the activity, then identify the critical path, then use the network as a control tool when problems occur during the project. And we discuss one of the problem that if, for example, one activity is being delayed, or one activity is actually not able to complete at the right time, uh, so it can delay the next activity. So we discussed how we manage it, and we withdraw resources from some other activity where there is some float time, and we use it for that activity which is being delayed, so that the project completion should be on time. Okay, all right then. Yes, we have discussed various questions as well, and we talked about the network diagram. We actually drew many of the diagrams. Okay, we talked about the float time as well, right? So I'm just skipping it. ESTLFT, we discussed it earlier, start time and latest finish time, and how do we calculate it, right? So I'm not going to discuss that at all because we have discussed it. Float time, we discussed it that there's a total float, there's a free float. We discussed that and how to calculate it, what is the formula. In the paper, they can ask you about it. So this is also done. Dummy activities, this is the latest we covered, that it is actually not an activity and doesn't consume time and resources. And how do we use it? It actually is used to create a logical dependency, okay, between other activities, and to prevent an illogical path from being created. Like I gave you that example as well earlier. Now, okay, that is the last part, and then we'll move on to the next chapter as well. And because I have given you the question, then you can do it on your own now. So advantages of network analysis, because now we can do it very quickly, okay? Or the advantages of critical path analysis. So first is, okay, just a minute, and let me just take the screenshot of the students who are actually there in the class today. Just a minute. So there are less students today, because the number was earlier for, around 40. Now only less than 25 students are there. Anyway, it's up to them. Advantages देख लें. Accurate delivery dates can be given to the customers. I told you because you can see the critical path. Because if you know the length of the critical path, let's say it takes 16 days, 18 days, 20 days, so you know that this is the shortest possible route, and before that, you cannot complete your project. So you give the deadline. Let's say if your critical path, the length of the critical path is 16 days, so you can give time to the customer that is that after 16 days they can collect their goods. So this is how you can actually convey the accurate delivery dates. Otherwise, you know that for example, you estimate a delivery date and then you give it to the customer, and later you realize that the date you actually gave that was incorrect because you will not be able to complete the project at the right time, and that was because of lack of because the network analysis or the network diagram was not used. So it is very helpful in giving the accurate date or the delivery date to the customer, and obviously it will improve the reputation of the business as well. Customer will be satisfied because the customer is getting the goods at the right time or when it was promised. Second is um, calculating EST of each activity allows the operation manager to arrange materials and equipments needed at the correct time. Like when you know that after, for example, D activity E will start, so you know that what amount of raw material is required or what necessary items will be required for activity E, because D is in process and you know that E is in the pipeline. After, as soon as D will finish, E has to start. So you can arrange material accordingly for activity E. But if I talk about activity J or H or I, you know that they'll come uh, after a long time. So you can delay buying the raw material which is required for that activity or those activities. And right. So this is how the materials can be arranged, which is actually required for the project to be completed. Huh? So and they are arranged in sequence rather than buying and trying to get all the raw material which is required for the whole project. So this is not right, because in that way you might get certain goods which are going to be used in the future, and you might get those goods. You might not get those goods which are going to be used in the for immediate use, right? So that is why you actually make preferences based on the sequence of the activity you have. ये जो एक्टिविटी पहले आने वाली है उसका मटेरियल पहले खरीद लेंगे, बाकियों का you can delay it because you know that it will actually be after some time. So then we have calculating LFT of each activity allows the manager to see whether the project is up to the schedule, right? Again, so you LFT now, that is why it is important now. You calculate LFT, latest finish time. Huh? So if, for example, the latest finish time of an activity is 10 days and you feel that it will be uh, or it ended up at after 10 days, or let's say the 11th day or the 12th day, it means that you are lagging behind and you have to pace up the project now. Otherwise the project will not be completed at the right time, and for that, what do? We actually withdraw resources from one area, from one activity to another, depending upon how much float time an activity is having, right? We can withdraw resources from more than one activity if we think that one of the activity doesn't have much float time. So in that way we can cover it up and we can stop that activity to go beyond their LFT, because all activities must finish at their time, that is what we call LFT, latest finish time. Otherwise the whole project will be delayed. Then knowing the critical path can be very useful. If there is delay in critical activities, it can delay the project. So some activities, again we discussed it, that like for example, if there is a delay in an activity and that is a non-critical activity, for example. So you see the float time of that non-critical activity, you say, all right, so there are five float days there, right? Fine. So activity is being delayed by 3 days, so it doesn't matter. So you won't do anything. Why? Because you know that with the help of that network analysis, that this is a non-critical activity and there is a float time there. So if it is delayed, doesn't matter because still the project will be completed on time. But if it is a critical activity, by looking at the network diagram, so now you have to address to that issue because critical activities do not have a float time, you know that, and that's why you have to withdraw resources from non-critical activities which have flow time to complete that critical activity at the right time. Otherwise, the whole project will be delayed. So again, this is how the project can be managed far more efficiently using critical path analysis or the network diagram. Similarly, okay, other advantage is non-critical activities have flow time, so resources can be shifted to speed up the critical activities. We discussed it, and so I'm not going to discuss that at all. Then business applications of network analysis can be run on computer. Yes, these days now softwares are there, so rather than drawing it, you can use the computer software, and you can just give the right sequence, the time, and network diagram can be drawn by the software as well. So again, it is an advantage and it can be done quickly. Or even if those who do not know much about the technicalities of how to draw a network diagram, right? So it helps to put activities in correct order by looking at the network diagram. Yes, so you can put the activities in the right sequence, and then you will be able to know that which material or raw items will be required. Okay, because obviously you will arrange the raw material first for the activity which is coming first, right? So this is how you manage it as well. We discussed it earlier as well. It supports the principle of simultaneous engineering, especially in developing new products in which activities can start together in order to reduce the total time. Yeah, I told you earlier that yes, there are parallel activities as well, and I told you those activities whose dependency is same or who have no dependency, they start from the same node, and we call them parallel activities. And what is the advantage? The biggest advantage is you save time rather than starting one activity and then after finishing the one activity you start another. Although there is no dependency in those two activities, it is a wastage of time. So it is better to start together, but you will be able to know about it when there is a network diagram. So you can start those activities together by looking at the diagram. So it can save a lot of time for the project to be completed. All right, so we are done with this chapter, and it was actually a very important chapter as far as your exams are concerned. And now we are moving on to another chapter, which is actually important as well, and that is just a minute. Chapters are not that big now.
एक्सक्यूज मी सर।
Yes, 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 please.
सर वो आपके A2 वाले नोट्स लेने हो तो वो कहाँ से मिल जाएंगे?
ये O2, अच्छा, ये A2 वाले नोट्स लेने वाले भी बच्चे भी मौजूद हैं, इसका मतलब है। अच्छा, चलें, उसके लिए आपको ये करना है कि मैं आपको नंबर दे सकता हूँ। आप तो करीब ही रहते हो, है ना?
जी सर।
वो इट कैन बी डिलीवर्ड एट योर हाउस एज वेल, ओके। तो अगर आप, और वो चार्जेस नहीं हो, वो आपसे वही वो मैं कह दूंगा कि भी 500 ही लेने हैं आपसे, मेरा स्टूडेंट है तो आपसे उतने ही पैसे ले लेगा जितने कि आप मुझे देते हो। तो डिलीवरी के कोई चार्जेस वगैरह नहीं वो आपसे लेगा, ठीक है? तो आप मुझे ना क्लास के बाद लेटर ऑन वो रिमाइंड करवाना। तो मुझे आप एड्रेस बता दीजिएगा, या मैं आपका नंबर दे दूंगा या उसका नंबर आपको दे दूंगा, आप फिर से बात, मेरा हवाला दे के बात कर लीजिएगा, तो आपके घर वो नोट्स दे देगा। ओके, now
ठीक है
the
सर।
next chapter. Okay, all right, now the next chapter is there. Let me
सर
show you the soft copy as well, just a minute.
सर
Yes, yes, please.
सर आप किसी तरह ना वो जरा वीडियो अपलोड कर दें if
हाँ हाँ,
possible.
मैं बिल्कुल समझ रहा हूँ, बस अभी क्लासेस खत्म हो रही है ना, तो मैं अब अच्छा, जस्ट a minute, हाँ, जस्ट a minute.
सर हाँ सर, वो वीडियो कंप्रेस करके अपलोड हो जाएगी या वो आप ड्राइव वगैरह पे अपलोड कर दें वो?
ओके, ऑल राइट, तो ये मैं आपको अब ये इसमें, या हम जो है ना वो ये प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट में कर लिया 27, तो अब आपके नोट्स में ये चैप्टर सीक्वेंस ये है, वो पुराना सीक्वेंस असल में तो मैंने चेंज नहीं किया हुआ था, तो ये एक्चुअली 32nd जो चैप्टर है कॉस का वो हम करने लगे हैं अब, ठीक है जी। तो इसको हम बहुत लंबा चैप्टर है नहीं, आप देख ही रहे हैं 4 पेजेस हैं सारे, इस समय बजट का चैप्टर भी बहुत ही छोटा है, आप देख रहे हैं 3 पेजेस सारे नजर आ रहे हैं। ये अकाउंटिंग से रिलेटेड है, तो जिनको अकाउंटिंग नहीं पड़ी हुई दे माइट हैव अ प्रॉब्लम, तो हो सकता है इसमें थोड़ा टाइम ये ले ले। वरना ये तो एक-एक दिन के चैप्टर हैं दोनों, एक-एक क्लास के इनफैक्ट, ठीक है? और उसके बाद ये इन्वेस्टमेंट अप्रेज़ल, ये एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट, अगेन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर है, और मैं अगर ये कहूँ तो इसमें सवाल आपको आ सकता है पेपर में इस दफ़ा, तो ये गलत नहीं होगा। और इसमें शायद 2-3 क्लासेस हमारी लग जाएँ और ये जो 4 चैप्टर हैं ये इकट्ठे लिंक्ड भी हैं और ये भी बहुत लंबे-लंबे चैप्टर नहीं हैं, तो ये बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम लेने वाले नहीं हैं। तो हार्डली आई गेस कि अभी विंटर वेकेशन के बाद मेरा ख़्याल है हम जनवरी के महीने में या एक्चुअली फरवरी के स्टार्ट में हम सिलेबस अपना ख़त्म कर देंगे और उसके बाद फिर हम पास्ट पेपर की तरफ भी आ सकते हैं और इवन मार्च में आपके अगर एग्ज़ाम होते हैं तो हम मार्च के बाद अप्रैल में भी जो है ना वो एक्सटेंडेड पास्ट पेपर की प्रैक्टिस को जारी रखेंगे। ये बात याद रखिएगा कि ज़रूरी है वो। तो ये इस तरह से हमारा प्लान है। तो हम सही जा रहे हैं, हमारे पास टाइम है पास्ट पेपर की बिफोर मॉक्स प्रैक्टिस करने का भी और आफ्टर मॉक्स प्रैक्टिस करने का भी क्योंकि उससे और क्लियर हो जाएगा कि आपकी प्रॉब्लम्स क्या चल रही हैं मॉक्स के अंदर। ऑलराइट, तो let's now start that chapter as well that is related to cost. Let me try to finish it as well today. All right, now costing methods we need to understand what is it. Now, costing methods basically means the method through which we can calculate cost. We can actually identify a cost or associate a cost with a product. This is what we call costing method. When we say I'm doing costing, it means you are actually allocating costs to different products. And you know that there are different types of costs, but majorly there is a fixed cost, there is a variable cost, you know that, okay? So you have to allocate those costs to your products as well so that you can find out the actual cost of the product. No? That is important. So allocating cost of the business to products, okay, or to business or to different areas of the business, that is what we call costing methods, right? And you know that it is very important to allocate cost because you will actually be knowing that how much cost is involved in it. Like for example, you produce you manufacture ready-made garments, right? So if you do not know how much cost is involved in stitching a shirt, uh, um, so there is a problem because then you won't be able to charge a price because or you do not know what amount is required to stitch shirts. Let's say 500 shirts or 1,000 shirts. Similarly, let's say you are running a restaurant and there is a reception area, like, and you do not know. And obviously, the job of the receptionist is to attend customers, making phone calls or receiving phone calls, greeting customers, and guiding customers as well. So, if you do not know how much cost is allocated for that particular area of the restaurant, again, there is a problem. Why? Because you need to find out eventually the revenue and the profit of the business as well. So, how can you calculate profit if you do not know what is the cost which is actually associated with a particular product or the area? Now, imagine that, for example, if you think that not much customers visit the reception area and they actually know where to go and not much phone calls actually come also, so and then you realize that maybe and because you have allocated cost to your reception area as well, so you may come to know, okay, a lot of cost is involved in reception area but not much revenue comes from there, or it is there is no utility as far as our customers are concerned because they do not actually visit that area and not much phone calls actually are received by the receptionist, or there is no need to make phone calls as well. For example, if this is the case, so because you have allocated cost to the reception area as well, you can come to know that if it is significant, so you can drop that idea of having that reception area. Or similarly, if you think that the cost is too low, then you can go for that, or even you can hire maybe more than one worker for that. If you think that sometimes there are too many customers and you need to greet them and you need to actually find a place for them as well to sit so that they can eat later on. So again, if you think that the cost allocated to it is quite reasonable and affordable, then you can hire maybe another receptionist or the person who can guide customers as well. So this is why it is very important to know about the cost and to allocate cost to different areas of the business, to different products of the business. The method we use, we call it costing methods. That is the importance of it. Now let's discuss few of the concepts which are linked with it. Methods to know the cost of each product or service produced by the firm as accurately as possible. So how will you be able to allocate cost if you do not know how much cost is involved in that? Na? So that is why if you use accurate costing methods, because there are many, but we'll actually talk about only two of them in this chapter. So it will help allocating cost as accurately as possible, and it will help business to determine what amount of expenditure they are making, and what profit they can earn in the future as well, or whether what to do with that particular product, either to stop producing it if it is not worth and it is incurring too much cost, or to continue with the production. Okay, similarly, it's about other departments of the business as well. Okay, let's now discuss it. Why accurate costing is important, although I have already discussed it, but I'll still show it to you. One, pricing decision can be taken, because if unless and until you do not know what is the total cost involved in producing a product, how can you charge a price? Because either you will charge too high a price, which might not be affordable to people, or you charge too low a price, which might be below than your cost. That's why it is extremely important. Then comparison of actual cost with budgeted cost is possible, yes, because when you know your cost, so you can compare it with your budgeted cost as well. Now, what is the difference? Difference is the budgeted cost is which you estimate, that you think that maybe to produce a certain type of product, or to when you are extending your building, for example, for further production, so you estimate your cost. That is what we call budgeted cost. Okay, and actual cost is which actually incurs. For example, you thought that maybe you are extending the area of your restaurant, and it actually requires, for example, 10 lakh rupees. So that is your budgeted cost. Huh? And obviously, why budgeted cost is important? Because you need to have a budget. Like, you need to set aside a certain amount, that okay, ये 10 lakh ruपया will be available for extension of the restaurant or the area of the restaurant. So finally, you end up spending, let's say, 12 lakh rupees. तो अब आपका ये एक्चुअल कॉस्ट ऊपर निकल गई है, एंड दैट शोज दैट यू वर नॉट वेल विद इन दैट बजट कंस्ट्रेंट. तो इसका मतलब है कि आपने अंडर परफॉर्म किया है, आप ओवर एफिशिएंट अंडर एफिशिएंट थे, और इट मे बी बिकॉज ऑफ सम अदर रीजन दैट वो जो आपने बजटेड कॉस्ट एस्टिमेट की है, दैट वाज नॉट करेक्ट. You actually did not estimate the accurate budgeted cost. वो एक्चुअली आपने कम एस्टिमेट कर ली थी और वो ज़्यादा हो गई. तो हो सकता है वो आपकी इनएफिशिएंसी नहीं थी, वो एक्चुअली आपने प्लान किया या अपनी बजटेड कॉस्ट को एस्टिमेट किया, वो दैट वाज इनकरेक्ट. सो बट अगेन, comparison can be made, and I told you why comparison is important, because comparison can tell the actual performance of the business and of the employees, departments, and other areas of the business as well. So we do compare it. And generally, if let's say your budgeted cost is accurate, okay, it's correct, then if your actual cost exceeds that, it means that you were not able to meet the target, and your target was to perform that activity, that is the extension of the building or the restaurant or the area, well within that budget constraint. Okay, it so this is how you are able to value the performance of the business. Then comparison is possible with competitors' cost. Again, you can do that as well. That what is the cost we are incurring and our competitor, because later on you might have to compete on price basis as well. You know that. So if your cost in comparison to your competitor is very high, so obviously you cannot compete on price basis with your competitor. Huh? Then you have to use some other means, like for example, you can compete on quality, you can compete on better service, you can compete on variety of products offered to the customer. So this is how you can do it, but you cannot compete on price in that way. So again, comparison of the cost with your competitor is very important. Huh? Because if you think that you are competitive, then you can compete on price basis as well. Like if your competitor drops down the price, you can also do it, because you know what is the cost of your competitor and your cost. All right, now some important concepts which are linked to costing methods. One is cost centers. Now you need to understand what is a cost center. Cost center is any area of the business. It can be a product, it can be a department, okay, or it can be any area where cost can be charged. Remember, so the example I gave you, the reception area, all okay. So cost can be charged, huh? Why? Because let's say in that area there is a fan there is an air conditioner there. Uh, there is a staff member there who is there all the time to greet customers, and then maybe some stationery items are required because the staff member has to write something on the register, or maybe a computer might be required again. So it means that that particular reception area is a cost center, because I told you by definition, cost center means any area, any product, any department where cost can be charged, that becomes the cost center of the business. Similarly, if I talk about the restaurant, again, the dining area where actually customers sit and eat. Okay, so again, that is a cost center. Why? Because again, you require certain workers who will be serving customers, and then cleaning
अस्सलाम
will be
वालेकुम सर।
done. Walaikum salam. Okay,
सर जुनेद, मेरा फ्लाइट नहीं आ रही, तो उसका फ़ोन कभी भी बंद हो सकता है, तो अटेंडेंस उसकी मार्क कर दीजिएगा।
वो मैंने अभी स्क्रीनशॉट ले ली है। ओके
ठीक हो गया सर।
ओके, तो ऑलराइट, सो अब इसी तरह तो वो क्लीनिंग नीड्स टू बी डन, चेयर्स टेबल्स दे नीड टू बी अरेंज फॉर दैट, अ सर्टेन वर्कफोर्स इज रिक्वायर्ड। फिर वहाँ पर वहाँ का जो है एयर कंडीशनिंग सिस्टम है, फैंस हैं, लाइट्स हैं, other decorations हैं, so again all costs can be charged to that dining area, right? So it is also a cost center. So think about the kitchen, okay, where chefs operate. So they cook food, so gas is involved there, power is involved there, electricity, even the salary of the chefs is there. So again that is a cost center, and cost can be charged कि जी kitchen run करने में इतना खर्चा आता है, so that is a cost center, including the salaries of the chefs, the electricity bill, gas bill, and other items. Let's say you buy ingredients, food ingredients, vegetables and fruits, that will also be added up in allocating cost to that kitchen area of the restaurant. So it means in all businesses there are different cost centers there, and we need to understand that. So if I show you the definition, an area of responsibility such as a department to which cost can be charged. Okay, it can be any area, so it can be a product as well. Remember, but right now I'm sticking to a particular area or department only. Why? Because I'll tell you later. For example, factories, processes, reception, I told you earlier, a restaurant, and or any area of the restaurant. Like for example, you have a hotel, right? And you have a dining area as well. So obviously the area where rooms are there and where customers actually stay, that is a different cost center, right? Because room service is there and other charges can be allocated to that area as well. And similarly there is a dining area, so then in that case the restaurant can be a cost center for the of that hotel as well, because they actually provide uh, that facility of staying there as well. Okay, similarly, there is another concept which is linked to it, that is profit center. Now, remember, what is a profit center? Now, any area of responsibility, because responsibility, when we say that somebody needs to be in charge of it, okay, like if processes are going on, somebody will be there to take charge of those processes. Factory, again, somebody, factory manager is there to take responsibility of the whole factory. Reception area, again, there is a receptionist, and for restaurant, again, there is a restaurant manager there as well, right? So there, that is why we call it an area of responsibility. Then profit center, so any area of responsibility where cost can be charged, right? Cost can be charged and revenue can be identified as well, because there are certain areas where only which does not only involve cost, they actually generate revenue for the business as well. Now if I talk about reception, it might not earn any of the revenue for the business. Same is the case with kitchen as well, right? Okay, but if I talk about a departmental store, so where in one department there are shoes there, in one department there is a there are the clothes which are being sold. Similarly, there is another department where cosmetics items are sold. So now there are different departments, and all departments, they the cost can be charged to them because workers are there, electricity is being consumed, and other costs are involved there. Apart from that, they generate revenue as well because people buy shoes, so that revenue actually is recorded in in the in that shoes department area, right? It will be under that category. Similarly, is the clothing area and then the cosmetics area. So it means both costs can be charged and revenue can be identified from that area. If it is possible, we call it a profit center. So one thing is very clear: all profit centers, they must be cost centers before we call it a profit center, because cost center is where cost, any area where cost can be charged, right? So अगर आपने प्रॉफिट सेंटर देखना है तो पहले उसको कॉस्ट चार्ज होगी और रेवेन्यू चार्ज होगा, तो रेवेन्यू में से कॉस्ट निकाल के प्रॉफिट निकालेंगे ना उसका। तो प्रॉफिट सेंटर मीन्स दैट एनी एरिया ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी वेयर प्रॉफिट कैन बी आइडेंटिफाइड कि इस एरिया से, इस प्रोडक्ट से, इस डिपार्टमेंट से कितना प्रॉफिट आ रहा है। तो प्रॉफिट कितना आ रहा है उसके लिए क्या जरूरी है you must be able to charge cost to that area, and you must be able to find out the revenue which is which is generated by that area, right? So profit center, cost center तो लाजमी होते ही है. Now see, um, a section of a business in which both cost and revenue can be identified. और तब हम revenue और cost को compare करते हैं तो हमें profit find out होता है ना, और that is why we call it profit center, right? For example, if I talk about branch, each department, product line, now you need to understand. If I talk about departments of a factory, so it won't be a profit center because factory does not generate revenue, because that is the job of the marketing department. Huh? So, but if I talk about the department of a grocery store, then yes, those departments they generate revenue as well, along with the cost charged to them. So that would be a profit center in that case. Similarly, product line. So all products they are profit centers. All products. Why? Because cost can be charged to them, fixed cost and variable cost, and they generate revenue as well. So they are profit centers. So similarly, same is the case with branches as well. Okay, now other important concepts, overheads. Overheads, I told you another name given to overheads is, again, you need to understand if right now it's almost 3:10, so if session expires, you need to come back again. You need to come back so that we can continue that and finish it if possible. Okay, all right. Any question regarding cost center, profit center, or costing methods? You are most welcome to ask questions. I am waiting. We have covered till now. We have covered costing methods, its importance, why to know about your cost or why to apply costing methods, and we have talked about two of the concepts, cost centers and profit centers. So any question up till now from anyone? So there is no question. All right. So it means we need to move on. All right. So now we'll talk about some other concepts, and those are costs. So first is overheads. You know that overhead is another name given to fixed cost. And you know that what is a fixed cost, which does not change with a change in the level of production. It remains the same. Even if you produce zero level of output, still you have to pay that cost. And that fixed cost is also called overheads. So, like for example, if I say production overheads, so what would be production overheads? Like for example, there is a factory. So you might have to pay factory rent if you do not own the building, and there are depreciation there. There is depreciation there as well of the equipment you use. Na, with the passage of time, they lose their value as well. The non-current assets. Huh? So that is also part of it. Both are overheads, huh? Because it doesn't matter whether you produce more or less, you have to pay a fixed amount. That is the depreciation. That is, you will actually subtract it from the total value of your asset. Like for example, your asset is for accounting non-accounting students. I'm just telling them. For example, you have a machinery which you use, and the value of the machinery is, let's say, 20 lakh. So the machinery value will not remain the same every year, obviously, because with the passage of time and with its use, it loses its value. It doesn't remain the same as far as the efficiency is concerned as well. Its parts actually get worn out as well. So what you have to do, you have to reduce the value of that equipment with the passage of time. So what do? You actually as let's say set up fixed percentage, let's say 10%. That you say, all right, every year I will reduce 10% of the value of the asset because it is being used and obviously it is losing its value as well. So every year, for example, you take 10% of the 20 lakh. So 10% of 20 lakh is how much? 2 lakh. So it will be the value next year. The value will be 18 lakh. So then again you will take 10% of 20 lakh. Then value will be again 2 lakh will come out. So 18 lakh minus 2 lakh, 16 lakh. So this is how you keep on depreciating, keep on your non-current asset or your equipment or machinery, whatever you are having, right? So it is a fixed cost. Means that doesn't matter whether you produce more or not, you have to reduce the value of your asset, especially non-current asset I'm talking about. So that is depreciation and it is a fixed cost. That is why, because it has no link with the output you produce. Factory rent, you know, that is a fixed cost. Selling and distribution overhead, warehouse, like selling and distribution overheads, for example, warehouse distribution.